Good morning. Hand today is going to be a 4-2 offsuit. This is a 10 NL. First person to act, open raises to 2.5. I, of course, fold. Small blind calls. This player's playing 19-13. We do have some notes on him. He's raised first in 2.5 and cut off with ace jack. So that kind of tells me, just that note, that this smaller sizing 2.5 isn't really adjusting based on strength of the hand. It's probably just his standard raise first in, um, raise first in um, amount. So, we're not going to read too much into bet sizing. We see with the ace jack, he's in the cutoff in position, and somebody donks into him. He calls with top pair, top kicker. The other was we have called the button ISO raise from big blind with ace queen offsuit. He's out of position, and then he leads when a queen flops, which is a bit unusual. I wouldn't have put top pair, top kicker in a donk range, but it's good to have him to know that. Just looking at stats, it's 19-13, early position 6%, so 1 out of 17. Then we've got 4 out of 26 and 2 out of 11, 3 out of 11. It does look like he plays position a little bit more, so I'm giving him a range that's something like this. It's almost 10% or 10%. It's good, close enough. And I think that's a pretty strong range. This guy is a little bit harder. We've got 42 hands. He's playing 28-15, so he is going to be a wider range. He's going to be slightly weaker. He's played 40% from the small blind, 25% from the big blind, but again, our sample sizes are real low in this situation. We've got pre-flop calls, call 2 bets. This will be the first time in the small blind. Big blinds 1 out of 4, buttons 2 out of 5. Now, that doesn't jive with the notes that we have on him. So we have 12 situations where we've called 2 bets from the blinds. His range is 10s and jacks, 6s and 2. So basically pocket pair, jacks and lower. So I have that, pocket pair, jacks and lower. And then you have ace queen offsuit plus, ace 9 off, ace 7 off, king 10 off, queen 7 off, jack 9 off. So I noticed, something that struck me was that there's no suited hands in this range, and that could just be that they didn't go to showdown, so we didn't see them. Now, to include this range, all these hands, we're looking at like ace x offsuits, which then will also have all the suited hands. If you're playing ace x offsuit, you're probably also playing king x suited. You've got the offsuit broadways, suited broadways, and then to get these, like the queen 7 and the jack 9 offsuit, you're going to have to add, the connected offsuit hands, the gapped offsuit hands, possibly even, go down some of the weaker queen 7, queen 6, jack 7, jack 6 type hands. I don't think that's accurate. Not for a small blind. So I started building that, and I said, I just think that's a little too wide. So I narrowed it down and said, basically, in the small blind, I think players tend to play a little bit tighter. So I knocked out all the offsuit aces. I gave him the suited aces. He's got the broadways. I gave him like king 9, queen 9 suited, and then some suited connectors, suited one gappers. I don't think we're really going as weak here. I mean, we could include them if we wanted to. It doesn't really change the percentages, but it's just I don't think necessarily he's going to be as wide as he would be if he was in the big blind, or if the bet raise came from a later position. I did scale ace king offsuit to 25%, since we know that he did call with ace king offsuit before, and ace queen offsuit. So we see a flop of queen 6-5 with 2 hearts. Has a potential to hit 11. For this guy, it's probably looking at, top pair, maybe some trips, 5, 6s, queens. Could have like a heart draw. I think he could possibly have like a gut shot if we look at his range to like 9-8, looking for a 7. So villain checks here, no big surprise. And then villain 13 checks, and that's a bit unusual. He's cbet in position 2 out of 2 times. This is a pretty decent flop to cbet. Cbet a lot of hands. You figure your hand's going to be tighter, stronger than your opponent. So I think if I was going to be betting, we're at least betting top pair plus. We're betting our flush draws. We're betting our gut shots. And then we're going to be including our pocket pair below the top card as bluffing ranges. And then we're looking at like 2-card backdoor flush draws as well, and probably these over cards just to kind of get us balanced. So you can see we're basically c-betting 100% of our range, or close to 100% of our range. He didn't do that, so you know, when I see players that don't do that, it kind of suggests that they have like an underpair to the queen, to that top card. So like 7s, 8s, 9s, 10s, and jacks. That's usually when I see it. I think they would still bet the flush draws. Maybe they'll have their gut shot as well. So we're going to say no made hands. We're going to X out, you know, like the flush draws. I think we're going to X out like the ace king, because again, I kind of think ace king bets here. But we're going to leave in like the gut shot, and we're going to leave in some of these 2-card backdoor flush draws. So, you know, he really should have been c-betting, and, you know, he didn't. I think this is a really good board to c-bet. It's going to be harder for villain 11 to call. And even if he calls once, it's going to be hard for him to call again. And I think you're setting up your c-betting range to include like clubs. So if a club comes, you can continue firing. If any of like a 4, 7, 8, 9 comes out, you can continue firing. If ace, king, jack, 10, you could continue firing. And there's going to be, you're just looking at all of these cards that you could continue betting with, because they could have potentially helped your hand in some way. He didn't, so I think we can narrow this guy's range, but we can't narrow his range. Jack of spades hits. This villain checks. Question we have to ask is, once it goes check check, is there ever going to be a hand that just kind of leads out? I do. I kind of think a set's going to lead out. We're going to set that at 50%, because sometimes they're going to lead out, and then sometimes I think they're going to go for the check raise. And I'm going to do the same thing with 2-pair as well. I kind of feel like top pair would have bet. Kind of feel like top pair would bet at this case with like ace queen. But I think he could have everything else. So I think that's what we're going to put with that player. And then villain 13 checks behind. Yeah, no set. None of that. He could still have middle pair. He could still have everything else. I think at this point, I'm going to X the open ender. This guy's hand has just become super weak as far as I'm concerned. And really, you know, based on, you know, he didn't c-bet, so I think he checks, and then this guy should be betting, and he should probably be following up with a river bet as well. 8 of diamonds hits. Villain 11 checks. Now that's pretty unusual. I think straight sets and 2-pair would have bet here. So now we're looking at something that he is also fairly weak with. Villain 13 checks behind. Again, we're looking at something middle pair or worse, no pair at all. We see a river, pocket 2s. That is in his range, and then pocket 7s, which was that under pair. So that was the most likely pair, you know, most likely situation when they don't c-bet. So don't really like how he played it. I think he really missed a c-bet, and we can check it. So we still don't know how this guy's range pans out, but we could set it up and run GTO and just using this range to see how the player should have played. Alright, so we're just going to bring this over here so you can see it real quick. This is the player that is out of position. Copied the range. Done. Player that's in position, we're going to give him this range, and I do like this range for him. And then we've got queen 6-5, queen of clubs, 6 and a 5 of hearts, build tree, starting pot on the flop was 6 with effective stacks of, we'll call it 88. All right, so we will set up. We haven't seen him donk, so we'll say don't donk, and then we're gonna edit the tree. So we're going to check to the out of position player, and then we're going to set this up as a 33% bet or a 66%. I think this would be a situation where we tend to go larger. We're going to accept the changes, and what we are going to do is pause it and run it, and we'll be back. All right, GTO finished running, not too long. We keyed in the check, so now it is in position player, and you can see we are betting 100% of the time. It looks to be evenly split between the 33% and the 66%. And based on what we could see, it looks like we're going larger with like 5s and 6s, and then we mix in some of these weak pairs as bluffs to balance that. The ace queens like equally balanced. It looks like kings were going larger, but aces and queens were split. So sizing probably doesn't matter as much in this case. Benefit of going larger is if you're up against a player who doesn't usually fold a whole lot on the flop, you can go larger to get that extra bets from him. If you have a player that tends to fold, you can go smaller and try to encourage a call on his part. So he could easily call here. Player checked, and you could see that there's really, I mean, when you look at the check decisions, they are very, very small percentages. So this is not a board that he should be checking, and I do think that was the mistake. So let's see here. I'd probably go about a third, based on his fold to cbet stat. I mean, he's loose. He probably missed. I'll go a little bit smaller. We'll say villain calls, and he calls with GTO, and then we get the jack of spades, and he checks to us again. Do we fire a second bet? I kind of think so. You've already bet smaller. I think in this case you could probably go up. And we are betting about 50% of the time. We're still betting our 3 of a kind, two pair over pair. 3 of a kind, 2 pair over pair. Top pair now starts to become a check, and that's because we have to start protecting those under pairs, and like second card, so like jack 10. We're still betting like 5s and 6s, no big surprise. We're betting some of our flush draws as well, but we're going to include some of our flush draws. So what kind of flush draws are we betting? We're kind of checking, looks like the king jack, jack 10. We'll have like ace jack as a check. So we will have some nut hands, but yeah, that's kind of the layout, and that's kind of what I would do. So I think overall mistake in this hand was this guy did not cbet, and I think he would have picked it up earlier in the hand. So hopefully you enjoy this. I think we're gonna call quits. Somewhat straightforward, easier hand. You kind of see it. Once he gives up, you think, okay, he must have an underpair to that queen, and that's why this villain could attack. You could see it if he checks here with the jack. This player is supposed to be betting 88% or checking 88%, but you can see you're betting in the three pair, 2 pair. That's GTO, because villain's going to have a wider or a balanced checking range, but exploitatively you attack at this point on. Pot 6, you go and bet 4. All right, so hopefully you enjoy this. If you do, look tomorrow for another hand.